It's a preference. I mean, I've got three books out there, and they're not in print anymore or anything like that. All three are exactly 80 pages long on purpose. They're intended to be one night reads on the road. Actually, that was actually the gimmick. Was if you're on tour, you could be sitting in your van and crank out a Dano book, that night when you're waiting to go to bed. The podcast is a similar mindset. You got a half hour to kill. Let's go knock out a Dano episode. Or when they were on YouTube, it was like you could binge watch a bunch of them in a night the way you would a streaming show.
Are you gonna do another book? Is there a fourth one? I mean, I know you have material, but like, is that at all?
I wrote 5 pieces about my father right after he died, and thought it would turn into a book called Punch, which is what my family calls him. They never called him Dan. And then I realized I am prolonging. Well, while I was writing it, I realized I was prolonging the grieving process, not moving through it. So I kind of hung it up, and sure enough, it became easier to breathe and function, not trying to, I've got to mine this while it's fresh.
Right.
It was almost a mental health decision to ditch that book. I still love writing. My friend Eric, he was the guitarist in Speak, and he lives in Amsterdam now, says that I've become very good at eulogizing. Like I wrote a eulogy for Ali. I wrote a eulogy for my dad. I wrote a eulogy for Frank. Not for real, but these online sort of tributes to these people's impact on me. That kind of sudden writing, a 5-minute read, a political diatribe, stuff like that, I almost find as satisfying as I ever did books, where you can find a rhythm to a thought and box it out in 4 or 5 paragraphs and have people go, that was cool. It's a fun sport.
Sorry, you've given me one more question. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Evan, I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. It's my night off from work. I like my apartment. I'm testing my new microphone.
You love me.
I'm testing my new microphone. It's my night off from work.
Okay. Speaking of Frank, like, I remember where I was when I got the news that he passed away. And to be honest with you, I didn't believe it at first, because my God, the guy survived having a widowmaker heart attack, was dead for 45 minutes. The next day, he's breathing on his own. The next day, he's eating on his own and walking around the hospital. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how does this happen? I know for you, I remember your post that night. It really summed up how I felt. You're just like, I can't believe it. I'm going to post more when I can, kind of process this. And I just kind of wonder, like, from then to now, like, what have been some of your thoughts about this? Because I still have to kind of catch myself, because I want to, like, send him a text just about
I don't dwell on it. I've buried the O'Mahonys have gotten in the habit of dying over the last few years, and I've buried more families since Frank died. So I don't, sit there, doom scrolling about the passing of Frank Harrison. He was, a crucial part of my life in punk rock, and every word that I've written about him and every note that we play at that show will be sincere. My thought on it that day was, you want to make sure this is real before you say too much about it. And okay, now you know it's real. Don't do anything knee jerk. Really think about the story between you two, and then if you think it's worth it, share it with people. And that's how that went. As far as a guy, I don't know. I mean, I'm 57 years old. I've been doing this since I was about 15, so I was 42 years. I don't know if in those 42 years I've ever met a person that this music meant more to than it meant to Frank. And so to be remembered as actively and for such a prolonged period as he has been, I think would bring more joy to him than it would to any other person I've ever met. And in as much as that's true, it's a good thing.
Dan, that's it. Here, I'm gonna click off I'm gonna turn off the tape.